Just a quick overview of this evening's agenda, so you know what to expect. I'll first talk about WIDAC and our upcoming events, and then I'll hand it over to Aislinn, who will introduce the topic and start the conversation with our guest presenters. Following this, we'll have some time for Q&A, so if you have any questions at all during the presentation, please feel free to pop them into a chat function, which is at the bottom of your screen. The presentation and Q&A will conclude at 6:30 p.m. Then following this, we will have optional networking where you'll be allocated into breakout rooms and be able to continue the discussion or simply meet other attendees. The networking will then conclude at 7 p.m. First, just a little bit about WIDAC. The community was formed to provide opportunities and support to women in the industry, and we curate platforms such as this where we can facilitate networking and knowledge sharing. We've had an extremely challenging year, so we are here to support you and help connect you with like-minded people. We have 2 more events this year. We're starting a sustainability series on the 24th of November, and we have our digital Christmas celebration on the 10th of December. We also currently have a mentoring program in place, as well as offering Mother's Care packages. Please jump on our very new website for further details. So we've made it through the year, and for those of you who have logged in from Melbourne, a big congratulations and well done. We're finally opening tomorrow. For me, I feel overwhelmed, excited, and extremely relieved. Although the year has been challenging, we haven't been able to meet you face to face, we've really enjoyed transitioning to a digital platform. Unfortunately, COVID-19 is here to stay until we are safe to go back to physical events. So we will be continuing our WIDAC at Home series. We curate these events for you, about you, and we'd like it also to be by you. So if you have any suggestions or feedback, please send it through. If there's anything you'd like to learn more about, anyone you want to hear from, what you've enjoyed so far, what we can do better, we would love to hear from you. So please shoot us an email at events@widac.com.au. Before I hand it over to Aislinn, we wanted to get you involved in our discussions. So we will be putting up some polling questions, which will appear on your screen as we move through the presentation. So please select your answers as we go, and we will take it from there. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Aislinn.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Raina, for that lovely introduction. With everything that's going on in the world right now, more than ever, we need great leaders. This evening, we're discussing all things leadership. Our panellists will share their thoughts on what leadership means today, their personal leadership pathways. It's not always a straight line to the top, as you might imagine, and moments that have challenged or inspired them. We will also hear advice on how to lead authentically and define your leadership style, as well as some handy tools to develop yourself into a great future leader. This evening, we're lucky enough to be joined by these amazing people. We've got Lisa Cutler, a leadership and career coach from Cutler Coaching, Belinda Coates, Director of Clients and Strategy from Slattery, and Tom Owens, Principal and Managing Director of Gensler in Sydney. Before we get started, we'll start with our 2 polling questions. Raina, if you've got those.
I'll have to put them up in a little while.
Oh, no worries. Okay, yes. Sorry. All good. Well, we'll jump in. We'll start with Lisa. Lisa is a leadership and career coach who helps women step into their personal power and become confident, courageous, and authentic leaders. With a unique ability to assist people in overcoming self-imposed limitations and self-sabotaging behaviours, her coaching is transformational. Lisa has an honours degree in Business Information Systems, is a certified coach and practitioner of NLP, a certified life coach, an advanced practitioner of Coach Mastery, and has worked with some of Australia's largest organisations. On a personal note, I've worked with Lisa for the last 1.5 years, and I can say she has helped me overcome some huge self-doubt issues and change the way I show up in my organisation. Welcome, Lisa. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Aislinn. Lovely to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
No problems. Well, we'll kick off with the questions. Could you please give us a quick overview of what authentic leadership means?
Yep, certainly. Hi, everyone, from wherever you are. I hope you're all comfortable and ready to enjoy the evening. Yeah, so authentic leadership. Authentic leadership is my favorite topic. It's really at the core of authentic leadership is self-awareness. So really understanding who you are, what you're good at, how you operate, so many different aspects. Also within authentic leadership is not only knowing yourself, but also being yourself as well, being true to who you really are. In addition to that, it's about being fair-minded and about doing what's right as well. But as I said at the beginning, the core comes down to really strong self-awareness. And I think that's particularly important for women. I think there's been some, we do have some challenges being authentic and being authentic leaders in our workplace sometimes, because quite often there can be such a masculine environment or such a kind of masculine association with leadership. And we really need to understand the core of ourselves and be comfortable in that. So some of those key elements are about knowing your strengths and your skills, really knowing your experience and your achievements, your values, understanding how your mind works and why you do the things you do as well. So that's the key elements of authentic leadership for me.
It's a lot to dig into with all of those areas. Is there a difference between male and female leadership styles, and what value can female leaders add to their organisations?
Yeah, this is a really interesting question, and I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
And I'm also going to say no. So yes,
Okay.
there is a difference between male and female leadership styles. So let me start with that one firstly, because the research tells us that women tend to be more emotionally intelligent, more empathetic. Men tend to be more they're more comfortable in hierarchy and competition and conflict. And the research also tells us that men can often have a more linear way of thinking. So, getting from A to B and what's the quickest path to get there. Whereas for women, they're more about collaboration and participation. And yes, they're still as determined to get to the outcome, but it's about really the journey there too, and understanding and involving everybody else in the process. So without doubt, there are some differences. So that's my yes. But I also want to it's really important to make the point that gender's not binary. It's not you fit into a male box and you fit into a female box. Yeah, it's a scale. Yeah. And we all have a mixture of both the masculine and feminine elements, without a doubt. Unfortunately, the situation that we're in is we're in a socially constructed environment that says that a man should think and behave and act and dress and everything else this way. Yeah. And for a woman, it should be this way. And heaven help you if you deviate from the expected stereotype or social norm. So because of that, that's one of the reasons why we find that women are more emotionally intelligent, because men have been brought up to squash those emotions.
Yeah.
And it's also why we see more men as leaders. And that's also because of the patriarchal society that we're in, that we've had for thousands of years, that favours men. So, but we're shifting. I really believe that right now there's never been a better time for women leaders to really rise up and change this, because when we get that balance, that's when we can really create the environments that we need and the leaders that have the leaders that the world needs.
I just got goosebumps, Lisa. That's such good news.
It is. It's so exciting right now. It's really exciting. And funnily enough, I just read a report today that was from the Australian Institute of Management that just came out a couple of weeks ago. And just like so many reports at the moment, with this research saying that what we need is female leaders, and we need emotional intelligence, especially as we move into a more digital and machine-led environment as well.
Oh, fantastic. No, that's really good to hear. Can any personality type be a leader? Is it a case of you've either got it or you don't, or are these skills that can be learned, do you think?
Yeah, for me, I truly believe that leadership is learnt, can be learnt. Yes, there's going to be some natural skills that people might have in terms of, maybe relating to people, better. They might find that easier. They're more comfortable. Some people might find it easier to really see a vision and be able to articulate a vision. So there's definitely skills that different people have, or more natural abilities. But leadership is something that is learned. And it's like a muscle that we build up. So I would say, yes, anybody could be. It goes back to that core of knowing who you are and knowing what your strengths are, and knowing how you operate. And that's such a massive part, is really understanding how you operate, because we do have so many internal, we have so much internal stuff going on that we need to work through. So yeah, when we understand ourselves, then we can be the leaders that we're able to be. I think one other element of this, just to mention as well, is that leadership is not dependent on a title or a position or having people underneath you.
Right.
Leadership is about an ability to be able to take people on a journey with you, to have a vision that you can communicate, and you excite and inspire people to come and join you on that journey. So leadership is a decision that you make for yourself, or it's a choice that you make for yourself. So you could be a toilet cleaner, but you have a great vision about how you want the toilets to look, and you bring other people on that journey with you. So it doesn't matter what position you're in. It's about choosing to be a leader and then building those skills.
And I love that idea, because it just means that we can all do things, leadership things, at wherever we are now. You don't have to wait till you get that title that says manager or director or whatever. So
yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. I've read an article recently too about a national company, but it was the example of one of the teams just had this amazing bond and worked really hard at their culture, to the point where other people from other teams wanted to join their team. So they were saying that was a great example of leadership within sort of a, not necessarily the higher level. So that's a great example too.
And that's what organisations should be looking for from their people. They should be looking for leaders in any role, any position.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sort of ties into our next question. What skills do you see in great leaders?
It's interesting, because I think the skills recently have changed. People are crying out for that authenticity, so that's important.
Yeah.
I recently ran a webinar on women's leadership in COVID, and came up with a whole bunch of leadership skills there. In fact, there were 7 leadership traits that have been identified through the research recently. Because if we have a look, like the COVID situation is just a wonderful example of looking at different leadership styles. And when we look at some of the countries that have been run by women, the results that they're getting are absolutely fabulous. And you have to look into that and say, okay, well, why is that? And a lot of it is because they've had a people first type strategy.
Right.
So Taiwan, for example, the president there, Tsai Ing-wen, I think they've had like a handful of deaths.
My God.
And the country is right next to China, and also has, an enormous population. But yeah, some of the attributes that we've seen coming out of that are things like really decisive actions.
Yep.
So for example, Tsai Ing-wen, one of the first things they did was put in really strict guidelines about who came in the country, really strong contact tracing. So that real decisive action, adaptability as well.
Okay.
Compassion and empathy. So, some amazing examples have come out from, like the likes of Jacinda Ardern, who we all love. And also in, I think it's Norway, Erna Solberg, who's the Prime Minister there, was running media conferences with children. So, really getting to other areas of the population. Yeah, it's been fantastic. So there's the connectedness as well, which we've seen from both of those leaders that I've just mentioned. There's the ability to handle pressure and uncertainty. There's humility, which is a beautiful trait that we haven't seen in leadership before. And humility in leadership is incredibly important, because this is what helps us overcome our unconscious biases and stereotypes. And this is what helps us gain a really inclusive society. So yeah, and also collaboration, which is something that we've seen so much more from our female leaders. So they're the traits that I would say are the most important ones from a leadership perspective.
What a great list. There's definitely some on there that you wouldn't sort of typically associate with that sort of old school view of leadership, isn't there?
Yeah, but some that, and they are, and they're ones that we would really love to work under.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Raina's just mentioned we've got some issues with our polling activity, so we're going to put the polling questions in the chat. So if anyone wants to jump in, it's all in the chat. Unfortunately, it's not working for us tonight. I might just read that one out, Lisa, because we were talking about that question. The question is for everyone: do you feel you can be your authentic self in your organisation? And it's a rating of 1 through to 5, with 1 being strongly disagree and 5 being strongly agree. So looks like we're getting some 4s and 5s, which is really good. A couple of 1s. I'll keep going, Raina, if you want to jump in when people have stopped adding their answers, we can let me know. Lisa, what are some practical things that we could do to develop our leadership skills regardless of our current role, do you think?
So in terms of practical things, I think that first one is the self-awareness, because it's incredibly important, but it's not something that we do very easily. Some people obviously do it more than others. But if you want to get very self-aware, it's about exploring deep within you in terms of some of those neural patterns that you've got. You know, you've got to look at your beliefs, your habits, all that kind of stuff. So it really is an undertaking in that journey of yourself. How do you operate? Why do you do what you do? What are your values? What are your skills and strengths? So I think that's the first area that we need to really focus on. Another one is, as I said, it's about that choice. So you make that choice to be a good leader, and then you've got to follow that up and build the skills around it. So there are some fabulous resources out there for leadership and to build leadership skills. So, you know, some of the podcasts like the HBR podcasts, the Simon Sinek, Brené Brown, all of those people are worth following from a leadership perspective. The books that are out there are fantastic as well. And books for all personality styles. There's Quiet and Quietly Powerful for any introverts on the call who are interested in leadership. And they've got some amazing information in there for leaders. So get on board with actually building your leadership skills through podcasts and articles and books and different resources. So I guess they're my 2 top tips.
Well, definitely things that people can do right now too, which is great.
Yeah, and I think the more you tap into it, the more, you know, if people are a bit maybe nervous or doubtful with their leadership abilities, and then they start listening and reading and looking into it more, you'll find, no, you can do it. You know, you really can do it.
No, that's awesome to hear. It looks like most people have answered either a 4 or 5, Lisa, to that question, which is
that's fantastic.
Isn't that great? Yeah. Most people feel they can be their authentic selves in their organisation.
That is brilliant. That shows you how much change we've made in our workplaces as well, I think, in the last couple of decades or so.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I'm really, really pleased to hear that. That's really good. Fabulous. Yeah. Okay, well, we might move on to Belinda, our second speaker. Thanks so much for that, Lisa. We'll chat again soon.
Thanks, Aisling.
Belinda is the Director of Clients and Strategy at the property and construction advisory firm Slattery. She is a business strategist and client relationship specialist with 20 years' experience advising property and professional services firms in strategic planning, market positioning, and business development. Passionate about knowledge, leadership, and leading conversations, Belinda drives the business plan and growth strategy for Slattery. Belinda supports numerous large influential groups, such as being the co-founder of the influential women's group 10 Women and a member of the Property Council of Australia's Diversity Committee. Belinda demonstrates a great passion for business growth, brand elevation, client relationships, and winning work through innovative ideas and smart client engagement programs. Welcome, Belinda. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And thanks, Lisa, for that great start. I made lots of notes.
There's lots to take in, wasn't there?
Yeah, it was really good. It was really good. I feel like we need to have Lisa in our pocket.
Definitely. Raina, do you want to just pop in the next poll question for Belinda's one? I'll jump into your questions, Belinda. Could you please tell us about some of the challenges you faced on your leadership journey and how you overcame them?
Sure. So I wanted to ask what people thought about, do you need to dress or look a certain way to be a leader?
Oh, Raina's just popped that one in the chat box.
Yeah.
Up there. Yeah.
So answer that. I'd be interested to know what people think. So back in my earlier career, thinking about what does a CEO look like or what does a prime minister look like, which is sort of the traditional ideas of leaders, we would always kind of think of the average type person being a man in either a navy or grey suit and tie and whitish or greyish hair. And that was sort of the average sort of thing. And so if you didn't look like that or you weren't ever going to look like that, that was going to be a difficult way to pave your way to be a leader. And so as women, as women in sort of growing up, we sort of had to find, how do we kind of find our way to be leaders? And I think we all started trying to dress like men and wearing the pinstripe suits and those kind of things. And what I think is really exciting now is that we have all these amazing leaders to look up to that are so different and unique, and there isn't that sort of blurred idea of a leader in a navy suit with the whitish hair. For example, Lisa mentioned Jacinda as well, Jacinda Ardern. She's a leader with a baby in her arm. And we have now Dan Andrews with the famous North Face jacket. You know, he's not in the suit every day. There's Mel Leong, who we all fell in love with on MasterChef. She's so vivacious and not afraid and so vulnerable, and she just was so authentic, using that word that Lisa used as well. And I think that it's a really special time for us all now that we don't have those stereotypes anymore. They're really quite broken down. And again, with virtual, I think it's been quite unique to be able to dial into, I've been running a lot of client reviews nationally with CEOs, and they're dialing in a hoodie or a sweater. They're not in their stuffy suit. They don't have the armor on. I'm referring to men generally because the women, we might not notice as much the change of clothing because we tend to not wear the stuffy suit. So I think that's been a really interesting time for us all to be able to just get real with everyone, and that we're all just human beings and people at the end of the day, and that leaders don't have to look a certain way, that we can all just be ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic observation about the dialing in the hoodie and the different clothes, because I've sort of found the same thing, and it's a totally different feel to it. You sort of feel like you're, I don't know, more personal or something like that. But yeah, no, it's a great observation. How have you adapted as a leader working remotely from your team?
So I think it's been a really interesting time for leaders having to adapt so quickly to such a sudden change. Yeah. And I wanted to share a story about myself. So I'm a very creative person, and I consider myself a creative leader. So that is how I've learned about myself and how I've learnt to lead. And so at the beginning of this period with Slattery, so my role is to help grow the business. So without being able to travel to, and you can see Sydney in the background of my corporate image, without being able to travel to our biggest market in Sydney, like that was quite confronting for some of us directors that often travel to Sydney from around Australia. How are we going to grow our business? How are we going to connect with clients? How can we engage? And I think what's really important is if you know what kind of leader you are, you can really dig into that when there's a crisis.
Yeah.
So there's a moment where the crisis happens and your first thought is to, oh, we just go, this is going to, you know, what's going to happen. And then if you can dig into that part of yourself and what kind of leader you are, you can actually use that opportunity. And for me, I found this time was such an extraordinary opportunity that we were able to reinvent the way that we engaged with clients through all sorts of creative ways. And one of those was, one of my real passions is curating conversations and forums, which often I do in person at boardroom events or wider forums, not being able to do that. Instead, I looked at this as an opportunity to be able to bring together people from around Australia that normally would be geographically so difficult to get together, or even international, having international people speak at forums. And so almost every week since March, I've been bringing together 20 or so people from around Australia for different topics, bringing together leaders. So one example being, we had a session on museums and we had the CEO of museum, the WA Museum, the head of property for Melbourne Museum, and we had Create New South Wales, and we were able to bring people together to share the challenges that they were facing within this environment in a way that we never would have thought of doing that. We never would have said, bring those people together. And so through challenge, there is so much opportunity. And if you can dig into yourself and your leadership style, you can find things that you never would have thought of.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's such a great example of how you've been able to turn that challenge into something really positive. Raina's just put up our second question, Belinda, which was what's more important in leadership? And we had what, why, who, how, and when. So far, we've got quite a lot of 2s, which is why, and some 4s as well, which is the how. Was that what you were expecting?
Yeah, I will touch on it at some point in these questions, but I think that everyone's go-to is the Simon Sinek, the why, isn't it? That's a natural. But yeah, I would say that it's more about the how, and I'll talk about that more when we get through the questions.
I'll move to your next question then.
No worries.
In your experience, what have you found to be the differences between managers and leaders?
So, we've probably all read all the little stories about what makes a manager and what makes a leader. And so we're well aware of the difference. But I think that when we're thinking about a manager, we're thinking about someone who's focused on what and who's going to do it. So the task, focusing on that task. Whereas leaders are more holistic and think outside of themselves a lot more. It's not what's best for them. It's also about how is this decision going to affect the business in the long term, or how will it affect the community? How will it affect clients in the long term? And so leaders look far beyond the task to rally people together, and they engage and empower to make those things happen. So a manager will say, do this, please, do this, please. Whereas a leader will say, you've got this.
Huge difference. Yeah, totally different feel, isn't it? Just in those words. So no, that's awesome. Could you please share some examples of great leaders you've worked with and what made them stand out to you?
So I think there's so many great leaders, and I think we're all probably really lucky in property and construction because there's so many amazing people to work with. Over the last 15 years, I've been really lucky to work with 3 really amazing, strong females.
Yeah.
And one of them being Ingrid Backer, who's a director at Hassel. So I worked with her for 5 years, and I learnt from her to be fearless. Nothing holds her back. She is just not afraid. And I think that's such an important, wonderful skill for a female in a very male-dominated industry, to just not be fearless. And after Ingrid, I was lucky enough to work with Kate Freer, who's managing director for Woods Bagot, and she taught me consistency and how important it is that you know what, you can change your mind behind the scenes and you can chop and change, but whatever happens, be consistent in your approach. Treat everyone the same way and be fair. And she's always stood by that, and she's unflappable in that sense. She's quite amazing. And the current person that I'm working with, Sarah Slattery, who's the first female managing director of a QS firm ever, she's an incredibly powerful lady that is so unwavering in her commitment to equality and diversity. Right. She has made so much change in our industry over the last 15 years through her push for women and diversity. And I think that that's so impressive that she knows what she's about. She knows her authentic self, and she is unwavering. So those three things, I think, being fearless, being consistent, and just being unwavering in your commitment to whatever that is, I think are three really powerful messages that I've been able to learn from in my career.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Great lessons and great people you've worked with to learn them. It's fantastic. How important was support in your leadership journey?
So I think there's probably this myth, there might be this myth that people get to the top because they're really tough and they don't have support, but it's not true at all. And about five or so years ago, I founded 10 women with 9 other women to create a group of female leaders that would support each other. And it was an opportunity for women to find each other. It's difficult to sometimes find each other, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And one of the great examples I have of a very strong leader, why they need support, is 3 or so years ago, Sally Capp, who was part of the 10 Women Network, she put her hand up to say she wanted to step up and attempt for the Lord Mayor position. And so the 10 women said to her, well, we're here for you, like, what do you need? And sometimes you might think that a strong, powerful woman like that might say, don't worry, I'll let you know. But instead she said, I need everything. Wow. I need a lot. And,
amazing.
And I think that that's really important. And I admire her so much that she was never afraid to say, this is what I need, and you guys, I need you to help me. And she knew that she needed that support, but she also was so incredibly gracious, and she never, ever doesn't thank anyone, the tiniest person ever. She remembers everyone's name, and she's so gracious about everyone who's ever supported her. And we were really proud to support her in that campaign, and she was elected, which is really exciting. And hopefully, fingers crossed, she'll get elected again, and we should find out that news later this week. So yeah.
Cross. That's a great story. I love that. That's so inspiring. What was your first leadership role, and how did you feel, and how did it feel to become a leader? How did you feel, when you became a leader?
Okay. So this is a really interesting question, because I don't think there's a moment where suddenly you're a leader. I think that you just evolve into more of a leader. So we are all, absolutely all leaders, all of us. We all have our own swimming lane, and we lead the way in our own lane. And so I wouldn't say there's a certain point at all, or there's a certain trigger point. And I think in my journey, I try to, pave a different way all the time. So, but I wanted to probably highlight a couple of little stories about other people that I think we could all learn from, and some of the people dialing in. And that is that first, Lisa mentioned it as well, that thinking back to that first question that you asked me about roadblocks for leaders, that remembering that it's not a title. It's not about saying, oh, you're going to be a leader now because you've been promoted to associate or a manager or senior this. That's not when you become a leader. You become a leader when you find your authentic self. And exactly like Lisa said, and I think going back to that question, the what, why, etc. It's about when you find your how. And your how is, what can you teach someone else? What is it that people come to you and say, how do you do that? That is when you can lead. And I think that's really important. It's about learning about yourself as well. And once you find your how, you find your swimming lane, and there is no one else in your lane. So that is yours to lead the way. And I think it's really sweet. And I love seeing what Eleanor, I'm sure everyone knows the name Eleanor Mosh. She's all over the place. She's all over social media.
Yeah.
And I think that everyone can really learn from her, that she hasn't waited to become a manager or a senior this or a senior that. She found her how. She knows what she's good at, and she knows what she wants to teach people. And she found it, and there's nothing's going to stop her. She is just off doing that, and nothing is going to stop her. And I think that's a really good role model to look to see what does that mean when you find your how.
And she certainly has gone for it, hasn't she? She's got the podcast, the book, she's speaking.
Yeah,
all
I know.
over. You're exactly right. She does.
It's
She does
super
it
cool,
so
isn't
well.
it?
Yeah, fantastic.
And she's so genuine. And if we think about all the leaders and people that we look up to, they're very genuine and authentic, and they've found their swimming lane.
No, it's a great description of the swimming lane. I like that. It's fantastic. Thank you so much, Belinda, for your time and generosity in your answers. Tom, over to you. Tom has spent 25 years, as over 25 years experience in architecture, design and consulting, and has worked on projects throughout Australia, Asia and the Americas. As an experienced architect and the managing director of Gensler Sydney, Tom is highly regarded for his work in the industry. His experience and expertise includes the design, management and delivery of projects across a broad range of sectors, including workplace, retail and hospitality. Tom has worked on projects ranging from small retail shops to multi-tower mixed-use developments in domestic and international locations. Under Tom's leadership, Gensler Sydney have completed incredible projects for clients across Australia, such as Accenture, Facebook, Air New Zealand and Samsung. Tom leads with an open mind and supportive approach, which he believes ultimately motivates and empowers design professionals to do their finest work and create meaningful projects for clients. Welcome, Tom. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Hi, Aislinn. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
No problems. Everyone, we've just got another question in the chat, another polling question. Has anyone seen advancement in their own career over the last 6 months? So if you guys want to jump in and answer that one, we'll start on Tom's questions.
Great.
Could you please tell us, Tom, about some of the challenges that you faced on your leadership journey and how you overcame them?
Right. So and thank you again for having me. And it's wonderful to be alongside Belinda and Lisa. Thank you so much for sharing. Those are really inspiring. I also made a lot of notes here on my pad, so I've got lots to go through later. So I would say for me, my journey in my leadership, on my leadership journey was really about getting out of my own way. And I think Lisa may have touched on this. For me, it was I needed to believe in myself, that I had actually something to give. I started my career in a smaller firm in the Bay Area in San Francisco. It was I was 3 years in when I was working in a small team of 3 and had an incredible studio director, but also really a team leader that really encouraged me to take on more responsibility. And from there, it led me to joining Gensler. And so that was over 20 years ago. And that changed my whole career trajectory. And the environment at Gensler is just so uniquely different than the firm that I was in and maybe other firms across the globe, where it is a very welcoming and encouraging environment where anyone can lead. There are lots of different opportunities for leadership. And what I recognized after 10 years of being in the firm is that I was the one getting in my own way. And the only way to get forward was to get rid of that and believe in myself and move forward. Start asking questions. Start acknowledging that I don't have all the answers. Stop putting up those barriers that Lisa was talking about that, you know, men are accustomed to putting up because that's what's expected of them. And to be honest with you, I had all kinds. And it took years for me to chip away at that.
Wow.
I just remember when, and one thing to also mention is that a lot of my sort of direct reports and bosses have been female, and they've been my most favorite jobs. But anyway, what one of them told me was, dress for the role you want, not the role you have. And that leads into another question that was asked earlier about dress. And at that time, I think it meant something different to me than it does now. To me, it really just means dress smart, you know, dress with intention. You don't have to dress to the nines. They're not talking about spend more money on your clothing. It means put some purpose into it, and that's how you present yourself to the world, and that helps with your self-esteem and confidence as well.
No,
Anyway,
that's fantastic. That's yeah, that's it, isn't it? Because it's about your personality and expressing who you are, not necessarily what you think you should look like.
That's right.
In that box. No, that's
That's right.
awesome. What have you learned from any not so great leaders you've worked with?
Right. So I haven't worked with a lot of not so great leaders. I have to be
That's a good
honest.
start.
Yeah,
That's
that's good. That's good. Interesting ones. Some of them, you know, uh, it's been a wild ride. And in 21, 22 years at Gensler, I've had lots of leaders. I've followed lots of people. I have a lot of mentors. And everyone approaches it very differently. So the one thing that I would say that is most important to me is integrity. There's a lot of words I could pick,
Sure.
but this one jumped out. And the reason why is because I think it's important to be able to follow somebody and you know to follow them on their journey, which is also my journey. I need to believe in the mission. I need to believe in the message. It needs to be inspiring. And for me, it's just really understanding that this person has integrity. They've got conviction. They have an understanding of what they're looking to achieve, and they want other people to join them. And I think that's really an amazing thing, but also really important to me. For people to have a strong moral compass, right?
Yeah.
I can believe in that, and I know that they have my back, and I know that we're doing something that has purpose and meaning. And so that's also how I would like to lead as well, because I want to, you know, wake up every day going, I really love what I do. And that's also important. We've got guiding principles at Gensler. We've got 10 of them, and I won't go through them all, but they do talk about passion for the craft, innovation, inclusivity, diversity, and growth. And all these things are really important to our we versus I culture. And so it's about us. It's about how we're doing this together. This isn't about the individual doing it all alone. And so that's also kind of wrapped in all of that.
Yeah, that's
Um,
fantastic.
yeah. Oh, and don't forget to follow through. If you say you're going to do something, do it. You know?
Right. Do you have any advice or tips on how to have hard conversations?
Right. So as when I became the managing director in the Sydney office, I quickly learned that I had to be a lot more prepared.
Right.
So I'm going to start with that.
Okay.
So if you can, be as prepared as you can for these conversations. Know that they're going to happen.
Yeah.
The buck stops with you. If you're leading the office, it's your business, and you've got to take people on this journey. You have to be able to have these conversations. So talk to your mentors, talk to the head of HR, talk to finance, whoever it is that you need to bounce some ideas off of, and ask all the questions you think you might be asked. Understand the topic as much as possible, right? And I find that if you do that, you go into that conversation with confidence. But let's just say that you don't have that opportunity. Something comes out of the blue, and you need to go into, you know, a room and have a conversation with somebody that's really difficult. Just go in with an open mind, be an active listener, ask lots of questions, be supportive, and work through that. Get as much information as you can when you're having this conversation. Just don't forget to be as empathetic as you can be. Imagine you being in their shoes and how you would feel and what it is that you're expecting to come back to you. So before you speak, it's best to just understand and listen as much as possible, to be able to be that for them. There was also something Belinda mentioned, which is an excellent tie-in, is to be consistent with your message. That is super important. If it's with that person or with many people, if your message changes over time or over the topic or whatever it is, then you start to lose credibility or start to lose their confidence in you. And so just keep the message simple, but keep it consistent and balanced. Obviously, you have to balance that with the needs of the studio and, of course, the person. So that's really important. Lastly, be as authentic. Be your authentic self. And everyone can see right through it. Just be you. Speak from the heart. Obviously, whether you're running a business or you're leading a studio or you're driving a team to a deliverable, whatever it is, be yourself, and don't panic. It's going to be okay. You're going to get through it.
Sometimes easier said than done, that one.
Yeah.
Hard
It'll
conversation.
always be over with, right?
That's
like
true,
you'll be on the other side of it eventually. So, yeah.
No, that's fantastic advice. How can leaders support their team or colleagues and themselves during our new normal, especially now that most of us are working remotely from our teams?
This one is still something that that I work through. We've lucky enough in Sydney, we've been back in our workplace for over 4 weeks now, and so we've had more FaceTime than we've had in the past. So that's really helped. But when we were in more significant lockdown, we had to check in with each other. We had to ask, how you were. It's just so important. A simple question: how are you? How are you doing? So I would recommend that, not just in the larger group setting like this, where the answers would be very different than if you were asking this to someone when it was just a one-on-one. And it is more time out of your day, right, to check in with your entire team, potentially, depending on the size of your team, but it's worth it. It gets you more connected to people. They feel more a part of the team, and again, the mission and whatever it is that you're doing. We want people to stay invested and stay emotionally in the game, and as cohesive as possible as a team. So having those casual chats are really important. Also ask what you can do for them. So if there's anything you can do, it goes such a long way. It's amazing the sort of how powerful that can be. Yeah.
And did you find that people were honest and open with you when you asked those sorts of questions?
I think so.
Yeah.
And I say it that way because we're, again, there is a relationship that we have with each other, and it does change depending on where we are, who's with us, or who's in the room, or what's where we are, whether we're in the office or out, for casual chat.
Yeah.
But I do think and still feel that the team has really weathered that storm really well, and that I had a generally good understanding of how people were doing. We tend to be very open with this, and our studio director Laura does an incredible job working with people and really getting tapped into what's really going on with the studio. So she and I had a yin and yang sort of relationship, as we always do, but especially during this time of supporting each other and the team in that way. So it was really, really fantastic.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Listening to Brene Brown's podcast, and she was saying that since COVID, she'd started her meetings going around the table asking everyone how they were really doing in 2 words. So describe how you're doing in 2 words. And I just thought that's such a lovely way to open the meeting and just check in with everyone quite quickly.
Right.
Just seeing how people are doing. I love
Yeah,
that.
it's important.
Love that idea. No, it's great.
Yeah.
What sort of skills, Tom, do you look for in up and coming leaders in your company?
Well, right. At Gensler, I would say that there's, again, so many different things I could say here, but if you have an honest approach to your work if you're truly loving what you're doing, and your approach to it is contagious. If you're on the same page as everyone else towards this goal, if you're invested in the mission, if we're all in this together, and you can see that, that right there I look for, because I understand that they're in the same headspace and that they've got the same goals as the rest of the team. I'm always also looking for people that show a real passion for it, and also seeking constant improvement of what they're doing. I think that's a great quality in people, is when they're self-motivated, right? They're taking the initiative, they're taking on more responsibility, whether they're being asked to or not,
Yeah.
and really asking questions and saying, hey, I think this, would really work, or hey, can I try this new thing, in this new program? We've never tried this before. Let's try, let's see what will happen. And, if we fail, and we move on. But I really love that people get excited about the work and excited about new things, and want to take those chances, but take on that extra thing, whatever it is. So it in the office and in the firm, we've got a lot of different leadership opportunities. The obvious one would be to manage an office, let's say, or a studio, which would be a subset within the office, depending on the size of your office. But there are other opportunities like team leadership or project leadership or practice area leadership. So for instance, aviation or workplace or retail. Being a leader in that respect helps people get more focused, let's say, in a particular area of work. It also gives them an opportunity to really dive deeply into the topic, learn a lot about it, be a thought leader in that. And that's separate from running an office. And so there are other opportunities like that in the office that aren't necessarily related to, like you said, leading teams. Maybe it's leading a topic, being an expert in something.
Yeah.
And that's really cool too. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Awesome. Thank you so much, Tom, for your insight and answers. We're running out of time because there's so much to talk about with leadership. I'm going to ask a couple of questions that have come through from the chat. So this is one for all speakers. How do you as a leader deal with the dark side of leadership when you cannot remove the leader? Belinda, do you want to start with this one?
Okay, we need to break it down. The dark side of leadership, when you can't remove
the leader. So maybe that's when you're working with someone who is a difficult leader.
Oh, you absolutely have to learn what not to be. I think that you have to use that time as a gift. You can't change that person. And Lisa might be better to answer this because she's an expert coach, but I think that you can't change people. So
Lisa's nodding. Do you want to jump in, Lisa?
Yeah.
That's deep. This is
dead
deep
right.
stuff.
No, Belinda's dead right. You can't change people. I work with a lot of clients who, might have issues in toxic cultures or managers that are really challenging to deal with. And for me, it's always about weighing up that can I change this environment, or if it's a person, you can't change the person. What's the impact? What's the impact on you and your health and well-being? Can you stick it out? Because managers will change. Can you stick it out? Can you move? Can you progress somewhere else? And if it's not going to change and it's impacting your health and well-being, you've got to get out of there. You've got to move away from it. Yeah, that would be my advice.
No, that's great. Another question, Lisa, this might be a good one for you too. Authentic self has come up a lot. Are there aspects of each of your authentic selves that you are afraid of or dislike, and how do you approach this?
Yeah, you know what, that's actually a really good question, because I think when people delve into their authentic self, there's an awful lot that comes up that is really scary. A lot of shadows are in there, a lot of confronting stuff that is really challenging. And it's about having the courage to work through that, and also to see the gifts in all of it as well, because even the shadows that you find in there will have gifts in them. They certainly will. And the more you explore, the better it's going to be for you. You know, as Tom mentioned about, you know, building up on that self-awareness, and you had a lovely phrase to it, Tom. What was it? Getting out of your own way. Yeah, that's exactly what you do when you find and uncover those things. You can literally blitz through them and get them out of your way.
And I think we're always like a Rubik's Cube. Like we're never matching up. We're always constantly maneuvering ourselves to try and get our perfect self, but
that's a great
continuous journey.
Yeah, the Rubik's Cube. I like that. It's a great way of thinking of it. That's fantastic. I wonder if we've got, well, we're just about out of time. We might do one more question. How do you come back after being knocked back from a senior leadership position and keep chasing your goals? Tom, do you want to start with this one?
Oh, I thought you would give that one to me.
Oh, sorry.
Let me look at that one again. Okay.
So how do you bounce back after being knocked back from a senior leadership position and keep chasing your goals?
Well, you can't stop. Can't stop chasing your goals. You're not going to give in, right? Like I said, everyone's got something to offer. Either maybe you're not in the right environment and you need to move, as Lisa said. Maybe moving to a different environment will help that happen. I have found in the past where I see folks beating their heads against the wall in a particular team, even let's say within Genza, for instance. And it got to a critical point where they had to make a decision to either leave the firm or move to a different studio, which you have an option to do. And each studio has a different personality, right? But all within Genza. And what I found is that sometimes when that person moves to a different studio, they thrive. And so sometimes it really is just the environment around them and the personalities in that studio and the interaction and the leadership and how that all works is suitable for you. Sometimes it's not. And instead of sticking it out and keep, beating your head against that wall, maybe you need to take a step sideways and look at it differently. But again, don't stop trying to improve and whatever it is that you're doing and what you believe in, stick to it. Because if you feel it in here, then it must be right. You just have to find the right place for that.
It's quite prominent in architecture firms also, Tom, isn't it? I've witnessed it many times. People maybe getting caught in the rip at one firm. I'm not encouraging people to leave their firms at all, but sometimes it isn't the right environment to flourish. And once people find that right firm or that right place,
that's right,
they just blossom.
That's right. Yeah, and not everyone is right for this firm, for instance, but and we understand that and we accept that. It's not perfect for everybody, but you're absolutely right. There are the leaders tend to really drive down the culture, and you can tell right away when you walk in the door what kind of culture that is based on the leaders' leadership style.
Yeah, that's so interesting, isn't it? Well, guys, I think that's just about it. It's 6:30. Thank you all so much to Tom and Lisa and Belinda for all your wonderful insight and conversation on this topic. I'll hand back over to Raina to wrap us up. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Firstly, a big thank you to our guest presenters. We've unfortunately run out of time. We could have kept going. Such a great topic. I think from the looks of it, we're all aspiring for some leadership skills. And secondly, a big thank you to our national sponsors. It's with their support we're able to facilitate events like these and provide programs and initiative to help you all. So if you're interested in becoming a sponsor, please get in touch with us. We really appreciate the support. If you're staying for our networking segment, please stay there. If not, simply jump off. Thank you so much for being here with us, and I will create the breakout rooms for those staying. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks
very much.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.
See ya.
Thanks.